Hello students. In the last class I started the next chapter of plant physiology, that is respiration in plants. In the last lecture I explained about the definition of respiration and what are respiratory substrates, and after that I started the mechanism of respiration. In that I told respiration it takes place in three steps. The first one is glycolysis, the second one is Krebs pathway, and the third one is electron transport system. Very simply, we can write it as ETS. Now, in today's class, I am going to explain about the first step of the respiration, that is glycolysis. Glycolysis can be defined as the process of the breakdown of one glucose molecule to form two pyruvic acid molecules, then that is called as glycolysis. Now please try to recollect the molecular formula of glucose, C6H12O6. Now you please try to recollect how many carbons are present in the glucose C6. That means 6 carbons are there. See, that's why I clearly mentioned glucose which consisting of 6 carbons. Now it undergoes equal breakdown. For example, if I have 100 rupees, now if I make two equal halves, then 50-50, like that. A glucose which is having 6 carbons, if we make it into two exact equal halves, क्या मिलेगा? 3 carbons, 3 carbons है ना. So this 3 carbon compound, that is called as pyruvic acid. Now glucose में how many carbons are there? 6 carbons. Now it undergoes equal breakdown. So how many pyruvic acids will be formed? Obviously two molecules of pyruvic acids. So that only I am telling. Okay. Now the process of glycolysis means this is the breakdown of one glucose molecule to form two molecules of pyruvic acid. That only it is called as glycolysis. Hope you understood, students. If you have some confusions, you please let me know. I'll definitely explain you again. Now the glycolysis, you are calling this word na, this word it is derived from Greek words. What are they? The first word is glycos. Glycos basically means sugar, whereas lysis means breakdown, or you can also call it as splitting. So both are meaning is same, so you don't worry about the word. See, splitting, breakdown, both are it is same only na, so meaning is same, so you don't worry. So glycolysis it is derived from two Greek words. The first one is glykos, which means sugar, and lysis means breakdown or splitting. Then where this glycolysis it is taking place? Now if you take our body as an example, see, when we eat our food, now the food it undergoes digestion. Digestion means the process of breakdown of large complex molecules like carbohydrates, proteins, and also fats to form simple soluble molecules. That means glucose and also amino acids and also glycerol. Like that, every complex molecule it break down to form simple soluble molecules. So this process it is called as digestion. Now this digested food it will be absorbed by the blood, and after absorption of the digested food into the blood, this blood, because of the heart, you know, heart is a central pumping device of our body. What it will do now, it undergoes contraction and also relaxation. Now when it is undergoing contraction and also relaxation, it exerts a certain amount of pressure, that if you measure it 120 by 80, that means 120 mmHg and also 80 mmHg. So this pressure it will be generated. With the help of this pressure generated by the heart, what happens, you know, this blood vessels they pump this particular blood which is having the digested food, that means the simple soluble food, into every cell of the body. That means this is how the digested food which is present in the small intestine, you know very well, small intestine is a site of complete digestion. Okay, but please try to understand, mouth, I mean buccal cavity. Mouth, I mean, when I'm calling mouth, my exact meaning is buccal cavity. Okay, if you take the buccal cavity, because of this teeth, some chewing it takes place, so by that also digestion takes place. But you should not call the digestion as complete digestion, so you have to call the digestion as partial digestion. Whereas stomach also, because of its acidic pH, you know very well, the gastric glands, they produces this gastric juice. In that, HCl will be there, hydrochloric acid, where the pH it ranges from 1.8 to even this 2, that means highly acidic. So with the help of this, the food also again it undergoes digestion. And of course there are some other enzymes also. Gastric acid also consists of pepsinogen. Okay, so that all apart, we are not here to discuss about that. But my intention, please try to understand, the stomach also, it in the stomach also some amount of digestion takes place, but that also you have to consider it as a partial digestion. So there are three sides of digestions are there. The first one is buccal cavity, and the second site of digestion is stomach, and the third site of digestion is small intestine. In that, the first two, that means buccal cavity and also this stomach digestion, you have to describe that as partial digestion. Whereas this intestine may in the basic medium. Okay, please try to understand. Whereas in the buccal cavity also, saliva pH is also slightly acidic. Okay, now the stomach completely acidic, whereas our digestion it is taking place in basic medium. Okay, so in the small intestine, in the presence of the basic medium, the food it undergoes complete digestion. So now the digested food which is present in the small intestine, that it is reaching to every cell that is present in the body with the help of circulatory system. Understanding it? Now this food, I mean digested food, when it reaches into the cell, this digested food it starts respiration, and then it produces some amount of energy. So the process of utilization of the digested food for the production of the energy, that only are calling it as assimilation. Understood now? Now this glycolysis in animals, it this glucose, when it enters into the what you call the what you call a cell, this glycolysis it takes place. How it reaches the cell? It reaches with the help of circulatory system. Hope you understood animals ka part. Now I'm talking about the plant part. In the plant, the food material it is produced in mesophyll tissue. Of course, if you take dicots, both palisade and also spongy, and if you take monocots, only spongy tissue will be there. Because you know very well, I'm not here to discuss about all the points, because I already explained all these points in the anatomy of the flowering plants. But for now what I need, so I am taking that points only. So in the mesophyll, the food material, that means I mean photosynthesis takes place, and thereby the food material will be formed. Okay, now with the help of a special conductive tissue that is called as phloem, this food material it reaches to every cell of the body of the plant. Understanding it? Of course, how it reaches, you please don't ask me this question, because munch flow hypothesis, mass flow hypothesis may खुद ही explain किया in the transport of the flowering plants. So please, if you forget, there is no problem. Once again you go back to the what I call munch hypothesis, then you will understand what is the exact what I call munch flow hypothesis. So please try to understand. For now I am explaining only how the glucose it is reaching to the cell, because that is required for my teaching for glycolysis. So now while it is a transporting in the what I call phloem, it is a transporting in the form of sucrose. Now in the form of sucrose it is reaching into every cell. But please try to understand what is the definition of glycolysis: the process of breakdown of the glucose into pyruvic acid, but not the process of the breakdown of sucrose to pyruvic acids. Am I correct or not? That means in the plants, every cell it is receiving the food material in form of sucrose, not in form of glucose. Then glycolysis, it will be operated only when the carbohydrates are available in form of glucose. Then how it is possible? See, I brought an what I call equation, chemical reaction. आपको दिख रहा है ना? So when the plant cell it receives the sucrose by phloem transport, I mean mass flow uh, or bulk flow, this sucrose which entered into every cell by an enzyme called as invertase. Students, you have to remember this point because this is already asked question, so you need to focus on this point. Sucrose in the form of sucrose, that means in the form of double sugar, the plant cells are receiving the digested food, sorry, the formed food. I'm really sorry, I'm extremely sorry for the mistake what I did. The formed food by the photosynthesis. So this sucrose, after entering into the cell, now in the presence of an enzyme called as invertase, I repeat, invertase enzyme. So this invertase enzyme, it breaks the double sugar to monosaccharides. What are they? Glucose and fructose. Now this glucose, it undergoes the glycolysis. Hope you understood how the glucose is available in animal cell and how the glucose is available in the plant cell. I think so I explained you clearly, but still if any small confusions are there, so you please let me know, I'll definitely answer you. So in the animal cell, it is readily available glucose, it is available in form of glucose because the digestion it takes place in the small intestine itself, and it reaches to the cell of the body by the blood circulation. Whereas in the plants, it is reaching to every cell by phloem in form of sucrose. बट ग्लाइकोलाइसिस के लिए क्या चाहिए? ग्लूकोज चाहिए. इसलिए दिस डबल शुगर विच यू आर कॉलिंग इट एज सुक्रोज इन द प्रेजेंस ऑफ एन एंजाइम कॉल्ड एज इन्वर्टेज, दिस sucrose it break down to form monosaccharides, they are glucose and also fructose. Now this glucose it participate in the process called as glycolysis. Students, I think so you understood. Such glycolysis word, it is actually derived from two Greek words. What are they? The first one is glykos, which means sugar, and lysis means breakdown, that means splitting, understanding it. So the process of breakdown of one glucose molecule to form two pyruvic acid molecules, that only it is called as glycolysis. Now this glycolysis, where it is taking place? It is taking place in the cytoplasm of the cell, understanding it. Now this glycolysis, the pathway, this mechanism, it was explained by three scientists together. Who are they? The first scientist name is Emden. Please try to understand Emden. And the second scientist is Meyerhoff, and the third scientist is Parnas. So because Emden, Meyerhoff, and Parnas, these three scientists gave this mechanism collectively. So in respecting this particular three scientists, we are calling it as EMP pathway, where E it means Emden, M it means what you call Meyerhoff, and P it obviously means Parnas. So EMP pathway. Hope you understood. So why glycolysis? It is also called as EMP pathway because it was given by, it was described by Emden, Meyerhoff, and Parnas. Whereas at this point I need not to tell you because last lecture I told you in the mechanism of the what do you call respiration. I told you the respiration, it takes place in three steps. The first step is glycolysis, second step is Krebs pathway, and the third step is electron transport system. So this point you must have understood by this time. So glycolysis is the first step of the respiration, where for the glycolysis oxygen is not required. Because oxygen is not required, this glycolysis, it is called as oxygen independent reaction, because it is not depending na, that's why it is called as oxygen independent reaction. Okay, now this glycolysis, it is common for both aerobic and also anaerobic respiration. Whether it is aerobic respiration or it may be anaerobic respiration, the respiration, it has to be started with glycolysis only. Understanding it? So because whether it is aerobic or it may be anaerobic, as that respiration, both of the respirations are started by glycolysis, that's why it is called as common pathway. What is the meaning of common pathway? The glycolysis pathway is common for both aerobic and also anaerobic respiration. Hope you understood. So this is all about the introductory part of the glycolysis. Now let us take what is the actual mechanism of glycolysis. So here is the actual mechanism of the glycolysis. Now either I'm talking about in animals by blood, that means a circulatory system, whereas in plants by invertase enzyme, the sucrose, it is break down to form glucose and also fructose. So by whatever the means, finally my conclusion kya hai na, the glucose, it enters into the cytoplasm of the cell. So you need to imagine, now this glucose, it entered into the cytoplasm of the cell. Hope you understood. Now the glucose, which is a 6-carbon molecule, after it enters into the cytoplasm, obviously cytoplasm of cell, okay, yeah, obviously it need to start the mechanism, है ना? But the problem क्या है ना, glucose needs some energy to initiate the glycolysis. Okay, now to give the energy, what is required? Tell me. You know very well. In our body, energy, it will be liberated by ATP. That's why the glucose, it utilizes 1 ATP. आपको दिख रहा है ना? It is utilizing 1 ATP. See, follow my arrow mark, then definitely you will understand. The glucose, to get energized, to start the mechanism of the glycolysis, it utilized 1 ATP. And this 1 ATP, you know what is the meaning of 1 ATP? 1 ATP में how many phosphates will be there? Adenosine triphosphate. That means adenosine, which is added with 3 phosphates. In that 3 phosphates में 1 phosphate, it is accepted by the glucose, and remaining 2 phosphates, they came out. That's why adenosine diphosphate हो गया. आपको समझ में है ना? Now this 1 phosphate which is given out by the ATP, it is added to the 6th carbon of the glucose. Glucose has 6 carbons ना, याद है ना? That's why I clearly mentioned 6 carbons here. Okay, so if you forget also, by seeing it you can be able to recollect. So glucose having how many carbons? 6 carbons. To the 6th carbon, this phosphate, it will be added. Hope you understood na? Because the phosphate it is added to the 6th carbon of glucose, it is called as glucose 6 phosphate. आपको meaning clearly समझ में है ना? But if you understand also, just I am giving a very short recap. Glucose, it finally enters into the cytoplasm of the cell, but if it wanted to start or participate in the mechanism, it needs some energy na? That's why to give energy, this glucose, it utilizes 1 ATP. From 1 ATP, it accepts 1 phosphate. So 1 phosphate only will be accepted, but adenosine triphosphate may 3 are there. So remaining 2, it comes out. So in form of ADP. So this 1 phosphate, it adds to the 6th position of the glucose. That's why glucose 6 phosphate. That means to the glucose 6th carbon में one phosphate is added. That is the meaning of the glucose 6 phosphate, where this reaction, it is catalyzed by an enzyme called as hexokinase. Okay, of course, hexokinase, you can also write it as glucokinase, but mostly you need to remember hexokinase only. Okay, that is a most genuine what I call word you can use. Okay, so hexokinase. Okay, hope you understood the what do you call the first step of the glycolysis. Hope you understood now. Now the one thing I'm sorry for this, I forgot to tell you one point. The whole glycolysis mechanism, it includes 10 steps. Okay, so hope you understood the first step. What is the first step? The process of conversion of glucose to glucose 6 phosphate by utilizing one phosphate from 1 ATP in the presence of the enzyme called as hexokinase. So this is the first step. Now let us take the second step. What is the second step? Now this glucose 6 phosphate, it undergoes isomerization. Hope you know, your chemistry students also know, so you definitely know the meaning, but safety के लिए मैं बोल रहे, rearrangement of carbon atoms, that is called as isomerization. So it undergoes isomerization, so rearrangement of carbon atoms. So this glucose 6 phosphate, it by isomerization, that means rearrangement of carbon atoms, it converts itself into fructose 6 phosphate. Now this fructose 6 phosphate, it again accept one more ATP. Okay na? Now again one ATP से one phosphate only will be accepted. Already sixth position में एक phosphate है, याद रखो. Okay, already what is the meaning of fructose 6 phosphate? Fructose, which is 6 carbon, to the sixth carbon one phosphate is added. That's why fructose 6 phosphate. So here R8 phosphate is added, है ना, because one more ATP it is utilized ना, so that's why one more phosphate is added and remaining two phosphates are coming in form of ADP. Now already a phosphate present in the sixth position. Now one more phosphate is added to the first carbon. Understanding it? So to the fructose, to the first carbon and to the sixth carbon, two phosphates are added. So that is the meaning of fructose 1,6 bi or bisphosphate. Understood na? But still I am telling you one more time. To the 6 carbon fructose, first carbon में एक and sixth carbon में एक. So two phosphates are added. So fructose 1,6 biphosphate. Understanding it na? So this is the what I call utilization of the second ATP. So this is the first utilization of the ATP and the second utilization of ATP. Students, I'll ask you in the last, that means after finishing the mechanism, you need to remember how many ATPs are utilized for the starting of the glycolysis. So how many ATPs? 2 ATPs. This is very important point. याद रख, last में जरूर पड़ेगा. Understanding it? Now this fructose 1,6 biphosphate, I'm sorry, I'm extremely very sorry students, I forgot fructose 6 phosphate, it will be converted to fructose 1,6 biphosphate by adding one phosphate from one more ATP. It is catalyzed by the enzyme called as phosphofructokinase. Understanding it? So the enzyme that is catalyzing this reaction is phosphofructokinase. I forgot, I'm sorry for that. Now this fructose 1,6 biphosphate, with the help of aldose, what is that? Aldose, it break down to form two equal molecules. Here how many carbons are there? 6 carbons are there, है ना? Now 6 carbons, now exactly they undergoes equal breakdown. So 3 carbons इधर आ गया and 3 carbons इधर आ गया, and the first formed one, it is called as glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate, which is having how many carbons? 3 carbons, whereas the second second compound is dihydroxyacetone phosphate. I repeat, dihydroxyacetone phosphate, which is having 3 carbons. Now you join them, 3 plus 3 कितना? 6 carbons, है ना? समझ में आ रहा है ना? Now for the first time, please try to understand, for the first time the glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate, it undergoes the further glycolysis. Once the glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate, it produces one pyruvic acid. Now secondly, the dihydroxyacetone phosphate, again it converts into glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate, and again it undergoes the further step of glycolysis and produces two pyruvic acids. आपको याद है ना, one glucose it break down to form two pyruvic acids. आपको कितना pyruvic acids दिख रहे हैं? एक ही pyruvic acid which is forming glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate. It is forming. Once the glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate it formed pyruvic acid. Now secondly, the dihydroxyacetone phosphate it converts, it undergoes isomerization and it converts again into glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate and produces second pyruvic acid. So one glucose into two pyruvic acids, that only it is called as glycolysis. But how the glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate it is converting into the pyruvic acid, that is a big question. Now let us solve this question. Now this glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate, now it loses some hydrogens. See, दिख रहा है ना? Now these hydrogens are immediately accepted by NADH. Students, many students, I can compare 100 students में 90 plus students they confuse. Photosynthesis में NADP is an acceptor of hydrogen. So in photosynthesis NADPH2 will be formed, but in respiration में NADH2 is a hydrogen acceptor. So here also the like आदत पड़ेगा ना, because till now they started practicing what you call photosynthesis. So while writing because many cycles ना NADP वो उसको आदत हो गया, but this small points only they complicate the concepts understanding it. So here you need to clearly remember the concept understanding it. So in the photosynthesis NADPH, whereas in the respiration NADH. Sir still मुझे confusion आ रहा है सर, मुझे याद नहीं हो रहे. I'll tell you one very easy logic. Photosynthesis में what is the first letter? Tell me. P है ना. photosynthesis PH है ना, फर्स्ट लेटर क्या है? P. So NADP आपको याद है ना. So photosynthesis में the hydrogen acceptor is NADP and it is accepting hydrogens, that's why NADPH2. Whereas now ये P निकालो, now क्या मिलेगा? NAD, and that will be the hydrogen acceptor of respiration. So again safety के लिए NADP is a hydrogen acceptor in photosynthesis. So there if hydrogens are accepted by NADP, it is forming NADPH2, whereas in the respiration NAD is the hydrogen acceptor. So here NADH2 will be formed. I think so I gave you proper clear explanation. So hope you don't confuse. Just practice at least 2-3 times, then further confusion also will go. Okay, now so by losing some hydrogens, these hydrogens are accepted by NAD and converts into NADH2. Now it results in the formation of 1,3-biphosphoglyceric acid, or simply you can write glycerate. And I am telling you, by now only, you at least 90% of the students who are listening to this video lecture, 100% they must have confused, है ना? Why you must have confused? Sir आपने clearly बोला glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate. So glyceraldehyde में 3 carbons are there, third carbon में 1 phosphate is added. That is the meaning of glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate ना. Now इधर कैसे आ गया सर 1,3-biphosphoglyceric acid? सर इधर एक है, इधर दो कैसे आ गया? What is the meaning of 1,3-biphosphoglyceric acid? Tell me. फर्स्ट कार्बन, ग्लिसरॉल्डिहाइड में 3 कार्बन्स आर देयर, फर्स्ट कार्बन में 1 फॉस्फेट एंड थर्ड कार्बन में 1 फॉस्फेट. सो फर्स्ट कार्बन में 1 फॉस्फेट एंड थर्ड कार्बन में 1 फॉस्फेट. सो 2 फॉस्फेट्स आर एडेड टू द फर्स्ट पोर्शन, दैट मीन्स फर्स्ट कार्बन एंड थर्ड कार्बन. सो 1,3-biphosphoglyceric acid. सर ये फर्स्ट कार्बन, थर्ड कार्बन मतलब ग्लिसरॉल्डिहाइड 3 फॉस्फेट में ऑलरेडी थर्ड कार्बन में फॉस्फेट इज देयर. सो 3-biphosphoglyceric acid. समझ में है सर? ये पहले पोर्शन, पहले कार्बन में फॉस्फेट कैसे आया? जादूगर है क्या सर? ग्लिसरॉल्डिहाइड 3 फॉस्फेट हाथ में कुछ जादूगर है क्या? देन अचानक व्हाट एक माया हो गया एंड एक फॉस्फेट एडेड? बिल्कुल नहीं होते हैं. दिस इज अ बायोलॉजिकल प्रोसेस, इधर जादूगर नहीं होते हैं. प्लीज ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड. ग्लिसरॉल्डिहाइड 3 फॉस्फेट के लिए एक H3PO4, understand it, this inorganic H3PO4, that means this inorganic phosphate, this this H3PO4 phosphoric acid, it is donating one phosphate. दिख रहा है ना आपको, मैं arrow mark भी for your clarity only I gave this H3PO4, that means phosphoric acid. This it is giving, it is donating, free में दे रहे हैं, चलो मेरा से ये एक phosphate ले लो, and it is donating the inorganic phosphate to the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate में already third position में one phosphate and दूसरा phosphate आ रही है this phosphoric acid से, so इधर से एक ले रही है, so first carbon में it is getting added, so it results in the formation of 1,3-biphosphoglyceric acid. Students, this step is very very important step, because I see in my experience, in my 12 years of experience, most of the students they confuse in this step only, understanding it, they write NADPH2, one mistake they will do, and they confuse, and they as it is copy paste 3-phosphoglyceric acid, and they forget about one. So this is a mistake where I am crossing, I am coming across all these years, understanding it. So I am not literally expecting any single student to do this mistake. So for safety के लिए I am explaining this step, this particular step once again. Okay, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, it loses certain hydrogens, and these hydrogens are accepted by NADH. NADP, it is the acceptor of the photosynthesis, whereas NAD is the proton acceptor, hydrogen acceptor of respiration. So here NADH2s will be formed. Whereas second confusion is what, इधर एक ही phosphate है, दूसरा phosphate किधर से आया, inorganic what I call phosphoric acid, it is free में donate कर रहे हैं to glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So इसका वजह से और एक phosphate आया, and this what I call reaction, it is catalyzed by dehydrogenase, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase, it is catalyzing dehydrogenase. What does it mean dehydrogenase, tell me? Dehydrogen, that means removing hydrogen, and that removed hydrogen it will be added to the NAD, and it converts to the formation of NADH or NADH2. If it is accepting 2 hydrogens, obviously it converts into NADH2. No, it is accepting only one, then it converts into NADH. It's not a big logic. Hope you understood, students. Now 1,3-biphosphoglycerate, that means this phosphoglycerate के लिए first position में एक phosphate and third position में एक phosphate. So 1,3, that means first position में एक and third position में दूसरा. So 2 phosphates are added. So biphosphoglyceric acid. Now this 1,3-biphosphoglyceric acid में the first phosphate it comes out, and immediately the first phosphate it will be added by ADP, added to ADP, and converts to the formation of ATP. So see, एक phosphate बाहर आ गया and it is added to ADP, and it results in the formation of ADP. Now general imagination, what will be there? 3-phosphoglyceric acid, and that only na, because first position में बाहर आ गया ना, which is accepted by ATP, that's why only the third position में और एक है. So this third one 3-phosphoglyceric acid. Okay, and I'm really sorry, every time I'm forgetting this, students please don't mind, मैं बुड्ढे हो गया, please excuse me. Okay, so again this reaction, it is catalyzed by phosphoglycerate kinase. Okay, now this 3-phosphoglycerate in the by catalyzing of phosphoglycerate mutase, so by catalyzing this in the presence of this enzyme, this third carbon में phosphate is there na, it undergoes isomerization, and then it comes to the second, that means second position में that phosphate आ गया. So 2-phosphoglyceric acid, and this 2-phosphoglyceric acid, and it converts into, that means the phosphate again it is shifted to the what I call first position. पहले किधर है phosphate? Third position में, that means third carbon में. Now it shifted to the second carbon, and now it is shifted to the first carbon, and then it is called as a phosphoenol pyruvic acid. Now this phosphoenol pyruvic acid में that phosphate, that one more phosphate also एक ही बचा है ना, वो भी बाहर आएगा, and it is again accepted by ATP. Understood na? And this it will be catalyzed by pyruvate kinase. Understanding it? Now finally what will be formed? One phosphate is also bahar aa gaya na. So what is left? Tell me. Pyruvate. So pyruvic acid, which is having 3 carbons. Okay. Now this is the formation of one pyruvic acid. समझ में है ना? Now after the formation of one pyruvic acid, again this dihydroxyacetone phosphate in the presence of triose phosphate isomerase, again it converts into one more glyceroldehyde 3 phosphate, and again it undergoes all this reaction and forms a second pyruvic acid. So this reaction it gets repeated for how many times? 3 so 2 times. Understanding it? So first time में 1 NADH2 and second and 2 ATPs है ना. Now second time, that means when dihydroxyacetone the phosphate, and again it converts into glyceroldehyde 3 phosphate, and again the same reaction it is taking place now. So second time one more NADH2 and 2 more ATPs, so totally 2 NADH2s and also 4 ATPs are formed. Understanding it? Hope you understood the mechanism of the glycolysis. Students, I think so I explained clearly. I am thinking so. So I am thinking that is not enough. You have to understand. Okay. So if you don't understand, please ask me. Don't hide your doubts. That creates a lot of problem while you are solving the questions. Okay. Please ask any single doubt. Single word also you can ask me. Okay. Now this glucose, that means glycolysis, here you need to understand few important points. So I brought important points in this call in this box, understanding it by the name note. Okay. Most of the enzymes that are involved in the glycolysis, they need magnesium as a cofactor. Understanding it? That means especially hexokinase and also pyruvate kinase, these enzymes they need magnesium. Understand? That means they need this inorganic, this magnesium as a supporter, as a cofactor. Understanding it? Whereas glycolysis it involves 10 steps. If you want, I'll count also. This is step 1, and this is step 2, and this is step 3, and this is step 4. Okay. And this is step 5, and this is step 6, 7, 8, 9, and again a reconversion of this dihydroxy acetone phosphate to glyceroldehyde 3 phosphate, and this is 10th step, and again it undergoes. Okay. So totally how many steps are there? 10 steps. So glycolysis it includes how many steps? 10 steps. Okay. And it takes place in the cytoplasm of the cell. Now आपको very very interesting thing आपको ऑब्जर्व किया ना, इधर nowhere the oxygen it is utilized and carbon dioxide is liberated. So in glycolysis neither consumption of oxygen nor the liberation of carbon dioxide. Such a beautiful what I call logic in this. Okay. That's why it is called as oxygen independent mechanism. Okay. Now first one, that means first step and the third step and also the last step, they are considered as irreversible reactions of the glycolysis. So these are the interesting facts what you need to remember about the mechanism of the glycolysis. Understanding it? And these are some simple forms. PGAL means 3 phosphoglyceric glyceric acid, or I'm sorry, glyceroldehyde. That means every time while you are writing the theory, you can't write 3 phosphoglyceroldehyde. You can't write na. That's why these are the short forms. Simply you can write PGAL. Whereas DPGA, what is the meaning of DPGA? Diphosphoglyceric acid. Understand? Every time you can't be able to write biphospho or diphosphoglyceric acid. है ना? That's why first time you write 1,3-biphosphogyceric acid, but second time onwards happily you can utilize DPGA. Like that, these are all short forms. Understanding it? So short forms also you need to remember. Okay. Now hope you understood the mechanism of the glycolysis. Because sometimes in a NEET, even I'm talking about a main NEET exam also, they're not asking phosphoglyceroldehyde. Understanding it? They're simply asking PGAL. Then you should not confuse it. That's why I gave it in the box. Understanding it? So whatever I'm telling now, unless it is very important, I usually don't touch it. Okay. So if I'm teaching matlab, it is very important. So please believe. Understanding it? Hope you remember the mechanism of glycolysis. Now what is the end products of glycolysis? Let us read. What are the end products? See, now this one glucose, it is breaking down to form 2 pyruvic acids. So see, number of pyruvic acids, how many? 2 mil raha hai na? So 2. Now how many NADH2s? See, पहले ग्लिसरॉल्डिहाइड 3 फॉस्फेट में एक NADH2, बाद में डाइहाइड्रोक्सी एसीटोन 3 फॉस्फेट, आई एम रियली सॉरी, डाइहाइड्रोक्सी एसीटोन फॉस्फेट, अगेन इट इज कन्वर्टिंग टू ग्लिसरॉल्डिहाइड 3 फॉस्फेट में. नाउ वन मोर NADH, है ना, and two more ATPs and one more pyruvic acid. So how many totally? One. So totally how many are there? By glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate, one NADH, and by dihydroxyacetone phosphate, one more. So totally how many? Two. दिख रहे हैं ना आपको ना. नंबर ऑफ ATPs, हाउ मेनी नंबर ऑफ ATPs विल बी फॉर्म्ड? पहले ग्लिसरॉल्डिहाइड 3 फॉस्फेट में 2, बाद में बाय डाइहाइड्रोक्सीएसीटोन फॉस्फेट में 2. 2 + 2 कितना स्टूडेंट्स? 4 है ना. सो टोटली हाउ मेनी? 4 है ना. 4 ATPs आर फॉर्म्ड. सो दिस इज अ टोटल गेन ऑफ ATPs. बट याद रख, you remember na, I told you one thing last time. I'll ask you one question. What is the question? याद है? How many ATPs are utilized for the starting of the glycolysis? याद है ना? I told I will ask. See, now I am asking. 2 ATPs are utilized. To understand this, I will tell you very simple, so simple logic. Imagine I wanted to start a business. You know, I'm a very good cook, understanding it. So I wanted to start a restaurant. So to start a restaurant, I took 2 lakhs loan from the bank. Now I did a nice restaurant what I call sale, so that I got 4 lakhs profit. Now you please try to understand, if I consider all the 4 lakhs as my profit, bank wala आएगा मुझे मारेगा. Am I correct or not? So I have taken loan as what? 2 lakhs. That means you consider this 2 lakhs as 2 ATPs. I need to pay them back, है ना. सो दो 4 आर फाउंड से क्लियरली मुझे पता है ग्लिसरॉल्डिहाइड 3 फॉस्फेट इट इज प्रोड्यूसिंग 2 ATPs एंड डाइहाइड्रोक्सीएसीटोन फॉस्फेट इट इज अगेन कन्वर्टिंग टू ग्लिसरॉल्डिहाइड 3 फॉस्फेट एंड फर्दर ग्लाइकोलाइसिस में इट इज अगेन फॉर्मिंग 2. सो 2 + 2 कितना? 4. बट हाउ मेनी? मैं लोन लिया ना, ऑलरेडी मेरा लोन लिया ना. सो लोन में रीपे करना है. सो 2 में वापस दिया. सो 4 आर फॉर्म्ड. सो total gain is 4, but the net gain is only 2 because मैं 2 बैंक को वापस दिया. So that's why the total gain of ATPs in glycolysis is 4 ATPs, but the net gain of glycolysis is only 2 ATPs. Students, hope you understood na. So these are the end products of the glycolysis. Understanding it na? See, 4 are formed. दिख रहा है ना clearly? This blue color I think so. And see, 4 ADPs converts into 4 ATPs. But इधर कितना utilized? बोलिए. इधर ATPs are converted to ADP. Understanding it? So 2. That's why from this 2 I need to pay it back na. See, this yellow colored one I need to pay. I need to pay it back na. That's why 4 are formed. But you need to consider only 2. Hope you understood. I've given a quite satisfactory explanation. But थोड़ा confusion है तो please ask me. Okay? Now let us take what is the end product of the glycolysis? 2 pyruvic acids. Now let us take what is the fate. Uska nasib kya hai? Pyruvic acid fate. And pyruvic acid fate always depends upon the presence or absence of oxygen. That means oxygen it decides the nasib of the pyruvic acid. For example, let us take case number 1. Case 1 mein oxygen is absent. Let us think absent. For example, if oxygen is absent, now let us take glycolysis. Now this glucose it converted into the pyruvic acid. Now the pyruvic acid में को what I call oxygen नहीं मिल रहा है. So no availability of oxygen. Then what happens? You know, it undergoes fermentation. That means anaerobic respiration. Such anaerobic respiration it is of 2 types. What are they? Lactic acid fermentation and the next one is alcoholic fermentation. Okay. Now let us take RBCs and also some bacteria and also certain mammalian muscles. So in that what happens? You know, the fermentation takes place in the presence of an enzyme called as lactic dehydrogenase. Because lactic dehydrogenase presence में the fermentation चल रहे है, इसलिए in RBCs of our body and muscle cells of our body and in certain bacteria lactic acid will be formed. If lactic acid is formed, then that is called as lactic acid fermentation. No, for example, if you take some yeast, that means fungi. I'm talking about fungi. In fungi, the fermentation, same fermentation process, only the pyruvic acid fermentation takes place in the presence of alcoholic dehydrogenase. Because of that, ethanol will be formed. So the alcoholic fermentation बोलता है, understanding it ना? So this is the fate of the pyruvic acid if oxygen is not available. Hope you understood, but still if you understand also, I wanted to give a very quick recap. Okay, now glucose, by the process called as glycolysis, it produces pyruvic acids. Now two pyruvic acids. Now the pyruvic acids ka nasib, it will be decided by the availability or non-availability of oxygen. For example, let us take case 1. Oxygen usko nahi mil raha hai. Then what happens, in the absence of that oxygen, the pyruvic acid undergoes fermentation. What is fermentation? Anaerobic respiration. Such fermentation, it is of two types. What are they? For example, if the fermentation, it takes place in the presence of an enzyme called as lactic dehydrogenase enzyme, where it is present, usually the lactic dehydrogenase, it can be seen in RBCs, muscle cells of the human beings in our body. So don't think that, sir, we are human beings, sir, we are not any bacteria, hamara body mein there is no anaerobic respiration. No, 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 no. That is incorrect. Your idea is absolutely wrong. Why? Sometimes what happens, some athletes are there, na, they starts running. Understanding it, they run. When they are running, what happens, See, when you are running, you up thak jayega, hai na? When you get tired, you can't be able to take the complete breathing. Am I correct? Not. That is the reason why what happens, sometimes what happens, the oxygen will be deprived in our body. So when you are running, obviously what happens, the muscles only participate in running, है ना? So muscles के लिए क्या चाहिए बोलिए? Muscles काम करना है मतलब, see, you already completed the animal physiology. Animal physiology में you already explained what I call mechanism of muscle contraction, है ना? Mechanism of sliding filament hypothesis, याद आ रहा है ना? In sliding filament hypothesis, what you all discussed, oxygen is required, है ना? But because you are running so fast, you can't be able to breathe. आप एक केस 1 में फर्स्ट थिंग यू आर रनिंग वेरी फास्ट, सेकंड थिंग में यू आर नॉट टेकिंग प्रॉपर ब्रीदिंग, है ना? दैट्स वाई योर मसल सेल्स दैट स्टार्ट्स डिप्राइविंग ऑफ ऑक्सीजन ना. इन सच केसेस इन आवर बॉडी आल्सो anaerobic respiration takes place. Dear students, these points are very important points. So if you don't understand itna chota chota points, definitely you will be confused and you will mark the wrong answer, and it will become a great loss for you, understanding it. So in our body also anaerobic respiration takes place, especially while you are doing like vigorous exercise and continuous like running or jogging ऐसा कर रहे हैं ना, वो टाइम पे और कंटिन्यू रेस्टलेस काम कर रहे हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल टुमारो एनुअल फंक्शन इज देयर इन द स्कूल, और फॉर एग्जांपल आपका घर पे सिस्टर का शादी और ब्रदर का कुछ तो occasions में you work restlessly. In such a restless condition, you can't be able to take a proper breathing cycle. In such cases, in our body also anaerobic respiration takes place. याद रख. But in our body, the anaerobic respiration takes place in the presence of what? The enzyme called as lactic dehydrogenase. That is the reason why in our body lactic acid will be formed. I think so. I gave a proper, like clear explanation. I am thinking. So my thinking is not that important. Your understanding is important. If you don't understand, you please ask me. Okay. Whereas if you take yeast cells, especially idli, है ना? सबको इडली पसंद है ना? डोसा, खमंड, dokla, understanding it. What we do, tell me? We ferment it. So we ferment it with the help of what? Microbes in human welfare. I think so. It is completed now. Yeast. It is utilized. So in the presence, so if yeast cell may by yeast, if the fermentation is taking place, then it takes place in the presence of an enzyme called as alcoholic dehydrogenase. Then what will be formed? Ethanol. That means ethyl alcohol will be formed. So if lactic acid is formed, that fermentation is a lactic acid fermentation. Whereas if ethanol is formed, then that is called as alcoholic fermentation. Hope you understood, students. Now case 1 हो गया ना? What is the case 1? Fate of the pyruvic acid में in the absence of oxygen. Now case number 2, fate of pyruvic acid in the presence of oxygen. याद रखो. Okay, 2 cases are there. Case 1 is in the absence of oxygen. Case 2 is in the presence of oxygen. Let us take. In the presence of oxygen, it undergoes aerobic respiration. Understanding it? That means oxygen. In the presence of oxygen, the respiration takes place. Then what it will be called? Aerobic respiration. In the absence of the oxygen, if the respiration takes place, then that is called as what? Anaerobic respiration. Understanding it or not? I think so. You are getting a धीरे धीरे आपको clear picture आ रही है. I think so. आपका मन में you are getting clear picture. So fate of the pyruvic acid in the presence of oxygen, it leads to aerobic respiration, and this aerobic respiration, it is called as formation of acetyl coenzyme or link reaction or gateway reaction. Sir, why you are calling, sir, why you are calling like that? Because acetyl coenzyme formation, it links the first step of the respiration, that means glycolysis, to the second step of the respiration. What is second step of the respiration? Krebs cycle. So it is called as link reaction or gateway reaction. Okay, now let us go for that. Sorry, before go for the reaction, now where it takes place? It takes place in the perimitochondrial space. Students, in the cell biology, I clearly explained what is a perimitochondrial space. If you forget, open that book and again go through it, and then you will understand. Perimitochondrial space means in the cell there are cell organelles. Understanding it? And that cell organelles are of three types. What are they? Double membranous cell organelles and unimembranous cell organelles, and the next one is amembranous cell organelles. Double membranous cell organelles matlab a cell organelle which is having two membranes, they are called as double membranous cell organelles. What are they? First one is nucleus, second one is chloroplastus, and the third one is mitochondria. Okay, whereas unimembranous, what is the meaning of unimembranous? Only one membrane it is present. Endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi complex, vacuoles. Understanding it? Like that, many are there. Now I'm not teaching cell biology, so I'm stopping it here. Amembranous matlab membrane है ही नहीं, that means membrane is completely absent. Then that is sorry, example for that is ribosomes. Ribosomes का membrane है क्या? आप में explain किया क्या ऐसा? So ribosomes में there is no membrane, so amembranous. Hope you are understanding na. Now up come to the point. Now let us take the mitochondria. Just now I told you it is a double membranous cell organelle. That means two membranes are present. So outer membrane and inner membrane, and the space like a thin space that is present between outer membrane of mitochondria and the inner membrane of the mitochondria, and that space only it is called as perimitochondrial space. Hope you understood now. So in the perimitochondrial space, this link reaction or gateway reaction or formation of acetyl coenzyme formation, it takes place. How? Let us see how. Now this is pyruvic acid. Simply you can call it as pyruvate, which is a 3 carbon. Students, see, I forgot successfully here. I forgot to mention 3 carbons, but see, I already told you. See, in the mechanism and in the end products, everywhere I explained 3. So please excuse me, I forgot, by mistake I forgot. So here I forgot to explain, mention 3 carbons. Okay, but you know because many times I told you, so you must be knowing it. Pyruvic acid, it has how many carbons? 3 carbons, है ना? Now this 3 carbon pyruvic acid, it loses few hydrogens. See, आपको दिख रहा है ना? These hydrogens are immediately accepted by NAD and it converts into NADH, or sometimes it accepts 2 hydrogens, then it converts into NADH2. Okay, so the first one, dehydrogenation reaction takes place. What is the meaning of dehydrogenation reaction? Pyruvate, it losing hydrogens. Because it is losing hydrogens, so dehydrogenation reaction. And first point समझ में है ना? Now second point क्या है ना? Out of 3 carbons of pyruvic acid, एक carbon बाहर आ रही है in the form of carbon dioxide, and this is called as a decarboxylation. What is the meaning of decarboxylation? Removing of the carbon from any other compound. So here pyruvic acid is a compound. So from 3 carbon pyruvic acid, एक carbon बाहर आ गया in form of carbon dioxide. अरे 3 में एक बाहर आया, so 3 minus 1 कितना होते हैं? 2. So it forms the acetyl group. समझ में ना? So acetyl group has how many carbons? 2 carbons. Understanding it? Otherwise, no, I am not convinced. So I wanted to add. Understanding it? So see, this is 2 carbon. Okay. Otherwise मुझे satisfaction नहीं मिल रहा है. Okay. Now 3 carbons. See, मैं बार बार गलती कर रहे हैं students. Okay. your teacher need lot of training in online classes. Okay, मैं बोर्ड में कितना मैं एकदम फटाफट फटाफट आई एम एक्सप्लेनिंग, बट ऑनलाइन टीचिंग में मैं आई एम नॉट डूइंग वेल. ओके वॉट एवर इट, बट आपको अभी समझ में आ रहा है ना. सो पायरुवेट इट इज हैविंग 3 कार्बन्स. नाउ 3 कार्बन में एक बाहर आ गया. सो 3 - 1 कितना 2. सो एसिटाइल कोएंजाइम में एसिटाइल ग्रुप में ओनली 2 कार्बन्स. अंडरस्टैंड इट. नाउ थर्ड में टू द एसिटाइल ग्रुप one coenzyme A it is getting added. Coenzyme A, every time you need not write coenzyme A, simply you can write CoA. Understanding it. So to the acetyl group coenzyme A it is added, so it is called as acetyl coenzyme. Understanding it. So the pyruvic acid, the 3 carbon pyruvic acid, by undergoing dehydrogenation and also decarboxylation, it converts into acetyl and by adding coenzyme A it is forming coenzyme A. समझ में आ रहा है ना. And this is called as formation of acetyl coenzyme A. So acetyl CoA formation. Hope you understood the link reaction or gateway reaction. If you understand also, I wanted to explain once again. Now the fate of the pyruvic acid is always decided by the presence or absence of oxygen. If oxygen is absent, it undergoes anaerobic respiration, whereas in the presence of oxygen, it undergoes aerobic respiration. So in the aerobic respiration, the pyruvic acid it enters into the perimitochondrial space of the mitochondria. Understanding it. Now after it entering into the perimitochondrial space of the mitochondria, it loses few hydrogens. First of all, it loses one carbon in form of carbon dioxide. So 3 carbons में एक बाहर आ गया. So it results in the formation of 2 carbon acetyl group, and again it further that means it is called as decarboxylation, and further it also loses hydrogens which are accepted by NAD and it converts into NADH. If it accepts 2 hydrogens, NADH2. Understanding it. Now it undergoes dehydrogenation, and third step it also added with coenzyme A, so which results in the formation of a 2 carbon compound called as acetyl coenzyme A, and that only are calling it as formation of acetyl coenzyme A, which is called as a link reaction. Why? You know, इधर तक अभी तक pyruvate तक ये क्या है? What is that? Glycolysis. Now after it convert into acetyl coenzyme, this acetyl coenzyme it participate in the second step of the respiration, that is called Krebs pathway. That's why this acetyl coenzyme formation it is called as a link reaction between the glycolysis and also the Krebs pathway. That's why it is called as a link reaction or gateway reaction. Understanding it? And that only I summarized. What is that? Pyruvic acid by adding with coenzyme and also by adding with NAD in the presence of pyruvate dehydrogenase, it converts into acetyl coenzyme, and this NAD it comes out as NADH or NADH2, and one carbon also bahar aa raha hai in form of carbon dioxide. So it results in the formation of 2 carbon acetyl coenzyme in the presence of pyruvic dehydrogenase enzyme. Hope you understood now. So this is all the fate of pyruvic acid. So tomorrow we are going to explain about the second step of the this respiration mechanism of respiration, that is Krebs pathway. Students, I am thinking so you understood today's lecture like completely. If you don't understand a single point also, you please let me know. You don't hesitate to ask me to make us one more video also. I don't even mind. Understanding it for me, in the understanding only important. Okay, how many times you ask, I 100% will explain you. Okay, thank you so much, and next class I'll meet you with the Krebs pathway.